The piercing wails echoed through the cramped airplane cabin, drawing irritated glances from every direction. Emma Sullivan held her infant daughter, Lily, tighter against her chest, murmuring apologies to the frustrated passengers surrounding them. The baby's cries seemed amplified in the confined economy section, and Emma felt the crushing weight of dozens of judgmental stares penetrating her back like daggers. "Shoo, sweet girl, please," she whispered, gently rocking Lily while fighting back her own exhausted tears. Each bounce, each sway seemed to make the situation worse rather than better. The young mother hadn't slept in over 30 hours, having finished back-to-back shifts at the coffee shop before boarding this midnight flight from San Diego to Denver. Her manager had called her unreliable when she'd requested the time off, threatening her job security if she didn't make up the hours when she returned. The ticket had drained her meager savings completely, but she had no alternative. Her younger sister Maya was getting married in 2 days, and despite years of tension between them, Emma couldn't bear to miss it. At 24, Emma appeared worn beyond her years. Deep shadows circled her hazel eyes, evidence of countless sleepless nights spent worrying about bills, about Lily's next meal, about whether the electricity would still be on when she returned home. Her once bright smile had faded after months of barely surviving as a single parent. Her former boyfriend, Tyler, had vanished the instant she revealed her pregnancy, blocking her number and moving out of state without leaving a forwarding address. She'd tried to find him through social media, through mutual friends, but it was as if he'd erased himself from existence the moment fatherhood became real. Now she was navigating motherhood alone in a cramped studio apartment that barely qualified as shelter. The walls were paper-thin, allowing her to hear her neighbors' every argument and television show. The kitchen consisted of a hot plate and a mini fridge that barely functioned. The bathroom sink dripped constantly, creating a rust stain she couldn't scrub away no matter how hard she tried. But it was home, and she was terrified of losing even that. Each day brought impossible choices that no one should have to make: diapers or groceries, electricity or formula, bus fare to work or putting gas in her dying car before it finally gave up completely 3 weeks ago. She'd cried for an hour in the mechanic's parking lot when he told her the repairs would cost $2,000, money she didn't have, couldn't borrow, and had no prospect of earning anytime soon. A flight attendant with a stern expression and perfectly styled gray hair approached, her heels clicking sharply against the aisle floor. "Miss, you need to quiet your baby. Other passengers need their rest. We've received multiple complaints." "I'm doing everything I can," Emma replied, her voice trembling with barely contained emotion. She's normally calm, but she hasn't slept properly in nearly a week. The stress, the unfamiliar environment. She stopped, realizing excuses changed nothing. The other passengers didn't care about her circumstances. They just wanted silence. Lily's screams intensified, her tiny face red and scrunched with distress. Emma noticed several passengers recording on their phones, capturing her humiliation for social media posterity. She could already imagine the comments: "Control your child. Why do people travel with babies? This is why I fly first class." Her face burned with shame as she imagined becoming another viral story about that terrible mother who ruined everyone's flight. "You should have reconsidered traveling with an infant," grumbled an older woman across the aisle, speaking loudly enough to ensure Emma heard every word. The woman wore expensive jewelry and carried a designer handbag, the kind of person who'd never had to choose between feeding her child and paying rent. Emma's eyes welled with tears. She'd considered driving, but her aging Toyota had died 3 weeks earlier, with repairs she couldn't possibly afford. The mechanic had been kind but firm. Without a new transmission, the car was essentially scrap metal. This flight represented her only option, purchased with money she desperately needed for next month's rent. The inevitable conversation with her landlord loomed ominously. Mr. Peterson had already warned her twice about late payments. One more missed rent check and she'd be evicted, homeless with a 6-month-old baby. The thought terrified her so deeply she sometimes woke at night gasping for breath, convinced she could feel the walls of her tiny apartment closing in around her. "Maybe try walking with her to the back of the plane," suggested a middle-aged man with more sympathy in his voice. "Sometimes the motion helps." Emma nodded gratefully and stood, but Lily only screamed louder at the change in position. As she made her way toward the rear of the aircraft, she could feel eyes following her, could hear whispered comments that cut like knives. Inconsiderate. Selfish. Why even bother traveling? Just as Emma prepared to escape to the lavatory, hoping to calm Lily in the cramped private space where at least they'd be alone with their misery, a gentle voice spoke beside her. "Pardon me, but may I try something?" Emma looked up through her tears to discover a man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit, approximately 30 years old, with compassionate gray eyes and precisely styled auburn hair. Everything about him radiated wealth and authority, from his handcrafted leather shoes to the elegant platinum timepiece adorning his wrist. His suit alone probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. He clearly belonged in first class, not squeezed into economy seating with screaming babies and frustrated travelers. "I'm sorry," Emma stammered, confused by his presence and his offer. "I have considerable experience with infants," he explained warmly, his voice calm and reassuring despite the chaos around them. "My younger sister has 4 children, and I've learned various techniques over the years. Sometimes a different voice or embrace helps. Would you permit me to try?" Emma hesitated, every instinct screaming warnings about strangers. She'd learned to distrust people, particularly men showing sudden interest in her and Lily. Tyler had seemed charming and trustworthy too, right up until the moment he'd called her pregnancy a trap, and accused her of trying to ruin his life. But something about this man's genuine demeanor convinced her. Maybe it was the kindness in his eyes, or maybe it was simple desperation overriding caution. "All right," she whispered, carefully transferring Lily into his waiting arms. The transformation was instantaneous and almost miraculous. Within moments, Lily's desperate cries softened to gentle whimpers, then complete silence. The man's broad hand moved in soothing circles across her tiny back while he hummed a melodic lullaby that Emma didn't recognize but found inexplicably comforting. His movements were practiced and confident, the actions of someone who genuinely understood babies rather than someone simply trying to appear helpful. "How did you accomplish that?" Emma breathed, amazed and slightly embarrassed that a complete stranger had succeeded where she'd failed for hours. "Practice and patience," he replied quietly, continuing his calming motions. "Sometimes babies simply require a change, different arms, different energy, different perspective. They're more perceptive than we give them credit for. She probably sensed your stress and anxiety, which only amplified her own distress." "It's not your fault," he added quickly, seeing Emma's expression. "It's just how babies work." Throughout the cabin, grateful silence descended like a blessing. Passengers who'd been glaring moments earlier now watched with curiosity and approval. Some even smiled, relieved that peace had been restored. Even the stern flight attendant smiled approvingly as she passed, nodding at the resolved situation. "What's your daughter's name?" the man asked, still cradling Lily with practiced ease. "Lily," Emma answered, studying his profile more carefully now that she wasn't drowning in stress and humiliation. Something felt familiar about him, though she couldn't identify why. Maybe she'd seen him in a commercial or a news story. "I'm Emma. I cannot thank you enough for this. I was moments from a complete meltdown, both of us were. Pleasure to meet you both." "I'm Michael," he said, chuckling softly. "Don't mention it. We've all experienced overwhelming moments, even without a baby involved. Life has a way of pushing us to our limits when we least expect it." As Lily drifted towards sleep against Michael's shoulder, Emma relaxed for the first time in weeks. The tension that had been coiled tight in her shoulders finally loosened. She observed how naturally he held her daughter, how his expensive suit jacket now bore wrinkles and dampness from baby drool, yet he seemed completely unbothered. Most men she knew would have been frantically trying to protect their clothing, but Michael acted as if the suit was irrelevant compared to Lily's comfort. "You're not supposed to be in economy, are you?" she asked, suddenly realizing the obvious disparity between his appearance and their surroundings. "I mean, you look like you should be in first class drinking champagne, not back here dealing with crying babies and cramped seats." Michael smiled mysteriously, a hint of something playful in his expression. "Let's simply say I appreciate variety. First class can become monotonous. Everyone's trying to impress everyone else, networking and making business connections. Sometimes I prefer to be around real people living real lives. Something in his tone suggested untold stories, layers of meaning beneath the simple words. But Emma was too grateful and exhausted to investigate further. The airplane's steady hum, combined with this unexpected peaceful moment, made her eyelids impossibly heavy. When was the last time she'd felt safe enough to truly relax? Months, maybe longer. I should take her back, she said weakly, though Lily appeared more comfortable than she'd been in days. You've already done so much, and I'm sure you have things to do, work to attend to or something. She's perfectly content here if you'd like to rest, Michael offered, his voice gentle and non-judgmental. I truly don't mind. You look like you desperately need sleep, and there's no shame in accepting help when it's offered. Emma wanted to refuse, to maintain the hard-won independence that had kept her and Lily surviving against impossible odds. But her body betrayed her. The combination of exhaustion, relief, and genuine kindness overwhelmed her carefully constructed defenses. Those walls had taken so long to build, brick by painful brick, and this stranger was dismantling them with simple compassion. Are you certain? She asked, already succumbing to sleep's relentless pull. You really don't mind? Absolutely. Rest. She's safe with me, I promise. Despite every instinct demanding vigilance, despite years of learning to trust no one, Emma felt herself surrendering to the moment. The warmth radiating from Michael, his steady breathing rhythm, and Lily's peaceful silence created a sanctuary she hadn't experienced in months. The constant anxiety that normally buzzed in the back of her mind like static finally quieted. Almost unconsciously, she leaned against his shoulder, awareness fading as the aircraft carried them through the darkness 30,000 feet above the earth. What Emma didn't realize was that Michael had observed her struggle for over an hour before intervening, his heart breaking watching such a young mother trying so desperately hard alone. He'd seen her apologizing to every passenger, watched her trying every technique to calm Lily, witnessed her fighting back tears of frustration and exhaustion. He debated whether to help, worried about seeming intrusive or inappropriate, before finally deciding that human decency mattered more than social conventions. What she also couldn't know was that Michael Thornton wasn't merely another passenger, he was CEO of Thornton Foundation, one of America's largest charitable organizations dedicated to helping struggling families. This chance encounter would transform both their lives beyond imagination, in ways neither could possibly predict in this quiet moment of unexpected peace. Emma stirred awake to the gentle announcement that they'd be landing in Denver within 30 minutes. For a brief, disoriented moment, she couldn't remember where she was or why she felt so warm and secure. Then reality returned in a rush. She remained leaning against Michael's shoulder while Lily slept peacefully in his arms, completely content. Oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed, she whispered urgently, sitting upright quickly and immediately missing the warmth. Heat flooded her cheeks as she realized she'd been sleeping on a complete stranger. I cannot believe I fell asleep on you. You must think I'm completely inappropriate. I'm so sorry. Michael smiled, seemingly unaffected by her embarrassment or the fact that he'd spent hours essentially serving as a human pillow. You were exhausted. You both needed rest desperately. Lily woke once, and I managed to keep her calm with a bottle. I hope you don't mind, I found it in your bag. She drank about 4 ounces and went right back to sleep. He carefully returned the sleeping baby to Emma's arms. She's truly angelic when peaceful. You're doing an incredible job with her, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Emma gazed at her daughter's serene face, marveling at the transformation from their earlier stress. Lily looked completely at peace, her tiny lips slightly parted, her breathing slow and steady. She really is perfect when she's like this, Emma whispered. It's just been so difficult lately. Everything feels like I'm drowning and no matter how hard I swim, the surface keeps getting further away. The words tumbled out before she could stop them, and Emma immediately regretted the overshare. This stranger, this kind, impossibly helpful stranger, didn't need to hear about her problems, no matter how compassionate he'd been. Would you like to discuss it? Michael asked gently, his gray eyes showing genuine concern rather than polite obligation. Sometimes unburdening to someone uninvolved helps. I'm a good listener, and we have about 20 minutes before landing. Whatever you share stays between us. Emma hesitated, torn between pride and the overwhelming need to tell someone, anyone, how hard everything had become. She'd learned to keep struggles private, partly from shame and partly from painful experiences with people who offered help before disappearing when things got difficult. Her own mother had promised to help with Lily but passed away from a heart attack 2 months before the baby was born. Her father had left when she was 10, and she hadn't heard from him since. Friends had gradually drifted away once her life became complicated, once she couldn't go out anymore, couldn't be spontaneous, couldn't be fun. But something about Michael felt safe, felt different. Maybe it was the genuine concern in his eyes, or maybe it was the fact that he'd spent hours helping her without asking for anything in return. "I'm a single mother," she began quietly, glancing around to ensure other passengers weren't listening. Most were sleeping or absorbed in their own devices. Lily's father disappeared when I announced my pregnancy. His name was Tyler, and we'd been together for 2 years. I thought he loved me, thought we were building a future together. When I told him I was pregnant, he called it a trap and accused me of trying to ruin his life. He blocked my number and moved out of state. I've tried finding him through mutual friends, through social media, but he's gone. Just gone. Her voice cracked on the last word, and Michael reached over to gently squeeze her hand. The gesture was comforting without being inappropriate. "I work at a coffee shop in San Diego," Emma continued, grateful for the supportive contact. "I pull double shifts just to afford our tiny studio apartment. It's not much, the walls are thin, the plumbing's terrible, and sometimes I hear rats in the walls at night. But it's home, and I'm terrified of losing it. My landlord, Mr. Peterson, has already warned me twice about late rent. One more missed payment and we're evicted." She paused, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. "My car broke down 3 weeks ago. The transmission died, and the mechanic said repairs would cost $2,000. I don't have $2,000. I don't have $200. I used my last savings for this plane ticket because my sister's getting married, and despite everything, I couldn't miss it. The worst part?" Emma's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "My sister Maya and I haven't spoken in nearly 3 years. We had a terrible argument when I got pregnant. She said I was destroying my future, throwing away opportunities, being selfish and irresponsible. She's always been the successful one, college degree, great job, perfect fiancé. And here I am, the screw-up sister who can't even keep her baby quiet on an airplane." Michael listened intently, never interrupting with empty platitudes or trying to fix everything immediately. When she finished, he remained quiet for a moment, processing her words thoughtfully. "That requires tremendous courage," he said finally, his voice filled with genuine admiration rather than pity. "Raising a child alone while working multiple jobs, struggling to survive, and still making efforts to repair a damaged relationship with your sister. Emma, you're far stronger than you recognize. Most people would have crumbled under that pressure." Emma looked skeptical, accustomed to criticism rather than praise. "You don't know me. Maybe I made terrible decisions that created this situation. Maybe I should have been more careful, should have seen Tyler's true character, should have waited until I was financially stable before having a child. Perhaps," Michael acknowledged carefully. "But I've been observing you since takeoff. How you apologize to every passenger even though you were clearly at your breaking point. Your gentle handling of Lily despite overwhelming stress. The fact that you're attending a wedding where you might not be welcome simply because it's family, because you believe in the importance of those connections. Those aren't actions of someone making terrible choices. Those reflect someone who cares deeply about doing what's right, even when it's difficult." His words struck Emma harder than expected, penetrating defenses she'd carefully constructed. When had anyone last said something genuinely positive about her character? Tyler had constantly criticized her decisions. Her boss at the coffee shop treated her like she was disposable, easily replaced by any of the dozens of people desperate for work. Even her own sister had made her feel like a failure, like someone who couldn't be trusted to make good choices. "What about you?" she asked, deflecting attention away from herself and her problems. "You never explained your work, and you still haven't clarified why someone who obviously affords first class is here in economy." There's a story there, isn't there? Michael's expression grew thoughtful, and Emma sensed he was carefully considering what to reveal. I work in business, he said vaguely, choosing words with obvious care. My company focuses on helping families in difficult situations. And sometimes I prefer economy because you encounter more authentic people. First class often fills with people who've forgotten what real life resembles, what it means to struggle, to sacrifice, to fight for survival. That's a remarkably diplomatic non-answer, Emma observed, studying his face for clues. Are you some mysterious figure I should know about? Should I worry about falling asleep on a stranger's shoulder? Are you secretly famous or something? Nothing dangerous, I promise, Michael laughed, though Emma noticed he still avoided specifics. Let's simply say I'm positioned to help people when possible, and sometimes it's easier accomplishing that without fanfare or expectations. When people know certain things about me, it changes how they interact, how they talk. I wanted to know you as Emma, not as a potential opportunity. Before Emma could press further, recognizing there was definitely more to his story, the plane began its descent. The captain's voice filled the cabin with landing instructions, and passengers around them began the familiar ritual of preparing for arrival, gathering belongings, checking phones, stretching after hours of confinement. This is probably goodbye, Emma said, feeling unexpectedly sad about parting from this kind stranger who'd shown more compassion in a few hours than she'd experienced in months. I wish I could repay you somehow for everything you did. You saved me from complete humiliation and gave Lily the best sleep she's had in weeks. I'll never forget your kindness. Actually, Michael said, reaching into his inside jacket pocket with deliberate care. I was hoping to give you something before we part ways. He produced an elegant business card, cream-colored with subtle raised lettering that Emma could feel even before reading it. The card was expensive, the kind of quality that spoke of serious wealth and influence. Emma took the card and read it, her eyes widening in shock as the words registered, Michael Thornton, CEO, Thornton Foundation. Below that was a phone number and a downtown Denver address in an area she knew was reserved for the city's most prestigious businesses. You're Michael Thornton, she whispered, staring at the card as if it might disappear. Even she, working in a small coffee shop while struggling daily to survive, recognized that name. Thornton Foundation appeared regularly in news stories about educational initiatives, single mother housing programs, job training for people facing difficult circumstances. They'd opened a new family resource center in San Diego just last year, a beautiful facility that Emma had walked past dozens of times, never imagining she might be connected to it in any way. Guilty, Michael admitted with a sheepish smile, looking almost embarrassed by the revelation. I was trying to avoid mentioning it because I wanted to have a normal conversation with someone who wasn't trying to request funding or impress me with their connections. When people know my position, everything changes. They either want something from me or become so intimidated they can't act naturally. Emma's mind raced as pieces connected, forming a picture she hadn't anticipated. This explained his expensive attire, his ease helping others, his mysterious comments about being positioned to help. But it also made his kindness toward her even more significant, more meaningful. He could have stayed in first class where CEOs belonged, could have ignored her struggle entirely, could have delegated the crying baby situation to flight attendants whose job was handling such problems. Instead, he chose to help personally, chose to spend hours comforting a stranger's baby, chose to sacrifice his own comfort for theirs. Why didn't you tell me, she asked, still processing the revelation and what it meant. Had he been evaluating her this entire time? Was she now some kind of case study, a perfect example of the demographic his foundation served? Because you needed help from Michael the person, not Michael the CEO, he replied earnestly, his gray eyes meeting hers directly. I've learned that when people discover my identity and position, authentic interaction becomes nearly impossible. They either want something, funding, connections, opportunities, or they become so intimidated they can't act naturally anymore. Every conversation becomes transactional. I like talking with you as simply me, as just another passenger who wanted to help. The plane touched down with a gentle thud that barely registered, and passengers immediately stood despite attendants' requests to remain seated. Emma clutched the business card, uncertain whether this revelation improved or complicated everything. Part of her felt grateful, recognizing this connection could potentially change her circumstances. But another part felt suspicious, wondering if his entire approach had been calculated, if she'd been identified and targeted as a potential program participant. "The card isn't charity," Michael said softly, seeming to read her conflicted thoughts in her expression. "It's an opportunity, if you want it. No strings attached, no obligations. You can call that number or never use it, the choice is entirely yours. But Emma, I want you to know that I gave you this card not because of your circumstances, but because I genuinely want to stay in contact. This wasn't a strategic networking opportunity. This was something different." As they taxied toward the gate, Emma stared at the card in her hands, her thumb tracing the raised letters of his name. Was this chance encounter about to transform her life forever? Or was she about to wake from an impossible dream, returning to the harsh reality of unpaid rent and impossible choices? The Denver airport buzzed with its typical early morning chaos, business travelers rushing to connections, families dragging sleepy children and overstuffed suitcases, announcements echoing through terminals in multiple languages. Emma gathered her meager belongings from the overhead compartment, her single worn duffel bag containing everything she owned for the weekend. The bag's broken zipper had been held together with safety pins, a detail that suddenly embarrassed her now that she knew Michael's true identity. Michael waited patiently beside her, still holding Lily with practiced ease while Emma struggled with the stubborn bag. Other passengers pushed past them, eager to escape the confined space, but Michael seemed unbothered by the chaos, his attention focused on helping her. "Let me assist you with that," he offered, reaching for the bag. "I've got it," Emma insisted firmly, finally wresting the bag free through sheer determination. The gesture was automatic, born from years of fierce independence. Accepting help meant owing people, and owing people meant inevitable disappointment when they let you down. Better to struggle alone than risk that pain again. As they walked through the jet bridge together, Emma became increasingly aware of the stark contrast between them. Michael moved with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to being important, someone whose presence commanded respect. People instinctively made way for him, even without knowing his identity. Meanwhile, she clutched her safety-pinned duffel bag and tried to ignore the stares directed at her wrinkled clothes and obviously exhausted appearance. "Where are you staying for the wedding?" Michael asked as they entered the terminal, his tone casual but his interest genuine. "A motel near the venue," Emma replied carefully, deliberately omitting that she'd chosen the cheapest option available online, a place called the Mountain View Inn with one-star reviews mentioning stained carpets, questionable cleanliness, and heating that worked intermittently at best. "It's not fancy, but Lily and I don't need much. We're used to making do." Michael's expression shifted slightly, his brow furrowing with concern. Denver weather can be unpredictable in October. Some of those budget motels don't have proper heating or security. Have you considered? "I can't afford anything better," Emma cut him off, her cheeks burning with embarrassment and frustration. The words came out harsher than intended, born from years of barely surviving while maintaining whatever dignity she could scrape together. "Look, Michael, I appreciate everything you've done, genuinely, I do. But I don't need you to solve all my problems. I've been managing on my own just fine." Even as she said it, Emma recognized the lie. She hadn't been managing fine. She'd been drowning slowly, losing ground every day despite working herself to exhaustion. But admitting that felt like failure, like proving everyone who'd ever criticized her choices right. Michael raised his hands in a peaceful gesture, clearly recognizing he'd overstepped boundaries. "You're absolutely right, and I apologize. I have an unfortunate tendency to try fixing things, especially when I care about the outcome. It's a professional hazard that sometimes bleeds into personal interactions. I didn't mean to suggest you couldn't handle your own situation." Before Emma could respond, his phone began buzzing insistently. Michael glanced at the screen with obvious reluctance, his jaw tightening in a way that suggested the call was important but unwelcome. "I need to take this," he apologized, his tone shifting from warm to businesslike. "Work emergency that apparently can't wait, even at 6 in the morning." He answered with a crisp, "Thornton here," and Emma watched his entire demeanor transform into professional mode. The kind, approachable man who'd spent hours comforting her baby disappeared, replaced by a CEO who commanded immediate attention and respect. While Michael handled his call, Emma found herself studying him with new eyes, truly seeing him for the first time. She'd spent the flight talking to Michael the kind stranger, but now she was observing Michael the CEO, the way he commanded attention even while speaking quietly, how other business travelers in the terminal seemed to recognize him and whisper among themselves, pointing discreetly. "I understand the timeline is critical," Michael was saying into his phone, his voice firm but controlled. "But we absolutely cannot compromise on the vetting process for the housing program. These are single mothers we're discussing, not statistics on a spreadsheet or numbers in a quarterly report." Emma's breath caught. Housing program for single mothers. She strained to hear more of the conversation without appearing to eavesdrop, suddenly hyper-aware of every word. "No, that's not acceptable," Michael continued, his tone brooking no argument. "I want to personally review every application that gets rejected. If someone is genuinely in need and we turn them away because of bureaucratic red tape or technicalities, then we're failing at our fundamental mission. These are people's lives we're affecting, families' futures we're helping determine." A terrible realization began dawning on Emma, cold and unwelcome. This morning, during their intimate airplane conversation, she had shared her most vulnerable struggles with a stranger, her financial problems, her housing insecurity, her status as a single mother barely making ends meet, every detail of her desperate circumstances. Now she was learning that this same stranger ran programs specifically designed to help people in her exact situation. That couldn't be coincidence, could it? "Schedule a meeting with the entire housing division for tomorrow afternoon," Michael was saying. "And have them bring comprehensive data on application rejection rates over the past 6 months. I want to understand where we're losing qualified applicants in the process." When Michael finished his call, he turned back to Emma with an apologetic smile, but her expression must have conveyed her growing suspicion because his smile faltered. "That housing program you were just discussing," Emma said slowly, her voice carefully neutral despite the anger building in her chest. "How long has Thornton Foundation been running it?" "About 3 years now," Michael replied, seemingly pleased by her interest. "We've helped over 500 families transition into stable housing. It's one of our most successful initiatives, with a remarkable retention rate. Nearly 90% of families who complete the program maintain stable housing for at least 5 years afterward." "And the application process," Emma pressed, her eyes searching his face for any hint of deception. "How do people usually find out about it? How do families get identified for the program?" Something in her tone must have alerted Michael that this wasn't casual curiosity. His expression grew cautious, guarded in a way it hadn't been before. "We have outreach coordinators who identify families in need," he explained carefully. "Sometimes people are referred by social services agencies or community organizations. Sometimes they apply directly after seeing our advertising." "Why do you ask?" Emma felt cold anger building in her chest, mixing with hurt and humiliation until she could barely distinguish one emotion from another. "How convenient," she said, her voice trembling despite her efforts to sound controlled. "How incredibly convenient that you just happen to be sitting in economy class right next to a single mother who fits your housing program's demographic perfectly. What were the odds, Michael?" "Rachel, what are you suggesting?" Michael asked, though Emma could see guilty knowledge flickering in his eyes, confirmation of her worst suspicions. "I'm suggesting that this whole thing, your kindness, your help with Lily, our entire conversation, was some kind of setup," Emma continued, her voice rising despite Lily stirring in her arms. Other passengers were beginning to stare, but Emma was beyond caring about making another scene. "Were you already planning to offer me a spot in your housing program? Is this how Thornton Foundation finds its success stories, by targeting vulnerable women on airplanes? Gaining their trust and then swooping in like some kind of savior?" "It's not like that," Michael said quickly, stepping closer with his hand extended in a placating gesture. "Emma, please, you have to understand." "Oh my God, I'm so stupid," Emma interrupted, hot tears of humiliation burning her eyes. "I actually thought someone was being kind to me for no reason, with no ulterior motive. I thought I had met someone who cared about me as a person, not as a charity case or a potential success story for your foundation's annual report." Other passengers had stopped to watch the confrontation, and Emma dimly registered a security guard moving in their direction, but she couldn't stop now that the words had started flowing. "You want to know the worst part?" she said, tears streaming freely down her face. "For a few hours up there on that plane, I actually felt like I was worth something. Like maybe I wasn't just some pathetic single mom who couldn't get her life together. Like maybe someone saw me, really saw me, and thought I was valuable just as I am. But this whole time, you were just evaluating me like some kind of case study, weren't you? Taking mental notes on my situation, calculating how I'd fit into your program's parameters." "That's not true," Michael said, his own voice thick with emotion. "Emma, yes, I was traveling to personally oversee our Denver programs. And yes, I sometimes take economy flights specifically to stay connected with the people we serve, to remind myself why this work matters. But helping you wasn't calculated or strategic. It was human decency. And getting to know you, learning about your strength and determination, that was genuine. You have to believe me." "I don't believe you," Emma replied, though something in his voice made her want to desperately. People like Michael, wealthy, powerful, successful people, didn't just randomly help people like her unless there was something in it for them. That was reality, the harsh truth she'd learned through painful experience. People like you don't just help people like me out of pure kindness. There's always an angle, always something you're getting from the transaction. What were you planning to do?" Emma continued, her imagination running wild with scenarios. "Follow me to my sister's wedding and document how your charity changed my life? Take before and after photos? Get a touching testimonial about the generous Michael Thornton who rescued a poor single mother from poverty?" Michael ran his hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting it for the first time since she'd met him. He looked genuinely distressed, vulnerable in a way that seemed impossible for a powerful CEO. "I can see how this looks from your perspective, and I understand why you think that. But Emma, you're wrong about my motivations. Yes, I'm passionate about helping single mothers because I've seen firsthand what they go through. My own mother raised me alone after my father left when I was 7. She worked 3 jobs just to keep us housed and fed." This revelation stopped Emma's angry tirade cold, stealing the words from her mouth. She studied Michael's face, seeing something raw and vulnerable that hadn't been there before, seeing past the CEO to the person underneath. "Her name was Maria Santos," Michael continued quietly, his voice carrying years of pain and love. "She immigrated from Mexico when she was 19, pregnant and alone. My father was American, someone she met while he was vacationing in Cancun. He promised her everything, marriage, a home, a future. Instead, he abandoned us when I was 7, deciding fatherhood was too much responsibility, too much limitation on his freedom." He paused, lost in memories Emma could only imagine. "Every woman we help through our programs reminds me of her. Of the nights she cried herself to sleep, thinking she was failing me because we ate rice and beans for dinner 3 nights in a row. Of the time she went hungry for 4 days so I could eat, claiming she wasn't feeling well. Of the way she held her head high even when landlords treated her like trash, when employers paid her under the table for below minimum wage, when the world treated her like she was somehow less worthy because she was raising a child alone." Emma felt her anger wavering, her certainty crumbling. The pain in Michael's voice was too real to be fabricated, too raw to be manipulation. "She died 5 years ago," Michael said, his voice breaking slightly. "Breast cancer that went untreated too long because she couldn't afford healthcare, kept postponing doctor visits because she was saving money for my college education. By the time it was diagnosed, it had already spread. She was 51 years old." "Michael, I'm so sorry," Emma whispered, her own anger forgotten in the face of his grief. "I didn't know. I shouldn't have assumed." "Even if all that's true," Emma continued, though her conviction was weakening, "it doesn't change the fact that you weren't completely honest with me. You let me pour my heart out to you, share my most vulnerable moments, all while knowing you could potentially fix all my problems with a single phone call. That's not honesty. That's manipulation, even if it's well-intentioned manipulation. And if I had told you who I was from the very beginning," Michael challenged gently, "the moment I offered to help with Lily, would you have talked to me the same way? Would you have trusted me with your story, or would you have assumed I had ulterior motives? Would you have let me hold Sophia, or would you have been too suspicious to accept help? Emma opened her mouth to argue, then realized he was absolutely right. If she had known from the start that he was a billionaire CEO with charitable programs specifically designed for single mothers, she would have been either deeply suspicious of his intentions or too intimidated and proud to be herself. She would have maintained her walls, would have kept him at distance, would have missed the connection they'd formed. But before she could formulate a response, Lily began crying again, startled awake by the stress and raised voices. The sound cut through Emma's emotional turmoil, reminding her that she had more immediate concerns than sorting out her complicated feelings about Michael Thornton. "I have to go," Emma said, adjusting Lily in her arms and trying to soothe her renewed cries. "My sister is expecting me, and I've already made enough of a scene in public for one day. I'm sure security is about to escort me out anyway." "Emma, please," Michael called as she started walking away toward the exit signs. "Let me explain everything properly. Let me." But Emma kept walking, her heart breaking with every step, wondering if she had just walked away from the answer to all her prayers or if she had narrowly escaped becoming someone's charity project, a feel-good story for wealthy donors. Either way, the loss felt crushing, another disappointment in a life that seemed built from them. The motel room was every bit as depressing as Emma had expected, possibly worse. The carpet bore mysterious stains and patterns she preferred not to analyze too closely. The heater rattled ominously when she tried turning it on, producing more noise than actual heat. The thin walls meant she could hear every conversation in adjacent rooms, including a couple arguing about money and someone's television turned up to maximum volume playing what sounded like a game show. But none of that environmental misery mattered as much as the persistent ache in her chest from walking away from Michael at the airport 2 days ago. The hurt hadn't dulled with time, if anything, it had intensified, mixing with regret and confusion until Emma could barely distinguish her true feelings. She sat on the lumpy bed trying to fix a run in her only nice dress, a simple navy blue piece she had worn to job interviews 3 years ago and to her grandmother's funeral 18 months ago. It was outdated and slightly too large now, having lost weight from stress and irregular meals, but it was all she had. Lily lay on the bed beside her, finally content after a difficult night in the unfamiliar environment with its strange sounds and smells. Tomorrow was Maya's wedding, and Emma still hadn't decided if she actually had the courage to show up. What would she say to her sister after 3 years of silence? How would she explain her circumstances, her continued struggles, her inability to fix the mess her life had become? Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya, the first direct communication they'd had in nearly 3 years. "Rehearsal dinner is at 7 p.m. tonight at the Sterling Room. You're still coming to the wedding tomorrow, right?" The message was polite but distant, carrying none of the warmth Emma remembered from their childhood. "No, I can't wait to see you," or "I've missed you." Just a logistical question about attendance, as if Emma were a distant acquaintance rather than her only sister. Emma typed and deleted several responses before settling on a simple, neutral reply, "Yes, I'll be there." What she didn't tell Maya was that she had spent the last 2 days obsessively replaying every moment of her conversation with Michael, analyzing every word and gesture, wondering if she had been completely wrong about his intentions. The hurt was still there, still raw and painful, but so was growing regret that she might have thrown away something genuine because of her own defensive walls. Those walls had taken years to build, constructed brick by painful brick with every disappointment, every betrayal, every time someone had proven that relying on others only led to hurt. Tyler's abandonment had added the final layer, cementing her conviction that trusting people, especially people who seemed too good to be true, was dangerous. But what if Michael had been telling the truth? What if his kindness had been genuine rather than calculated? A firm knock at the door interrupted her brooding thoughts. Emma peered through the peephole, expecting to see the motel manager with another complaint about Lily's crying or perhaps a pizza delivery for the wrong room. Instead, she saw Maya standing in the hallway looking elegant in a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than Emma's monthly rent, her dark hair styled perfectly and her makeup flawless. "Maya," Emma opened the door, shocked into momentary speechlessness. "What are you doing here?" Her sister stepped inside, surveying the shabby room with barely concealed dismay. Her nose wrinkled slightly at the musty smell, and her eyes lingered on the stained carpet before settling on Emma's face. "I came to talk to you before tomorrow. We need to clear the air, and I didn't want to have this conversation at the wedding with everyone watching." Emma bristled automatically, defensive walls snapping into place. "If you're here to tell me I don't belong at your wedding, that I'm an embarrassment to the family, just save us both the time and awkwardness. I can leave tonight." "Actually," Maya said, sitting carefully on the room's single chair as if afraid of what she might encounter, "I'm here to apologize. And to tell you something that might change how you feel about a lot of things, about me, about our argument, about everything." This wasn't the conversation Emma had been expecting. Maya had never apologized for anything in their entire relationship, had never been the one to make the first move toward reconciliation. She was the successful sister, the one who had everything figured out, the one who'd always been right while Emma made mistake after mistake. 2 years ago, when we had that terrible fight about your pregnancy," Maya began, her confident facade cracking slightly, "I said horrible, unforgivable things. I called you irresponsible and selfish. I said you were throwing your life away. I accused you of having a baby you couldn't afford just to get attention or sympathy. I was cruel and judgmental, and I've regretted those words every single day since." "I remember," Emma said quietly, the old wounds still tender despite the passage of time. Those words had haunted her through her entire pregnancy, through every difficult moment of early motherhood. "You made me feel like the worst person in the world, like I was ruining not just my own life but everyone else's too. What you don't know," Maya continued, her voice barely above a whisper, tears beginning to stream down her carefully made-up face, "is that I was pregnant too when we had that fight. Michael and I, my fiancé, we had been trying for months. When I found out you were having Lily, I was furious. It felt cosmically unfair that you got something I wanted so desperately, and you didn't even plan for it. You weren't ready. You weren't stable. It seemed like the universe was mocking me." Emma stared at her sister, processing this revelation she'd never even suspected. "Maya, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say anything?" "I lost the baby 2 weeks after our fight," Maya interrupted, her voice breaking completely. "A miscarriage at 10 weeks. And instead of calling you, instead of apologizing and asking for support from the only family I had left, I buried myself in work and wedding planning. I pretended everything was fine. I threw myself into being perfect, perfect career, perfect relationship, perfect wedding, because if I stopped moving, I'd have to face what I'd lost and how I'd treated you because of my own pain." The sisters sat in silence for a moment, both crying for different reasons. Emma crossed the small room and knelt beside Maya's chair, reaching for her sister's hand. For the first time in years, Maya didn't pull away. She gripped Emma's hand like a lifeline, holding on as if she might drown without that connection. "I'm so sorry," Emma whispered, her own problems temporarily forgotten in the face of her sister's grief. "I wish I had known. I wish I could have been there for you. You shouldn't have gone through that alone." "That's not even the most important reason I came here tonight," Maya said, wiping her eyes and trying to compose herself. "Yesterday, a man called my office at work. He said he was trying to reach you about something urgent, but you weren't answering your phone. He was very concerned about reaching you." Emma's heart stopped, knowing instinctively who Maya was about to name. "Michael Thornton," Maya confirmed. "He explained that you two had met on a flight and that there had been some kind of misunderstanding between you. He asked if I knew how to reach you, if I could help him get in contact with you. And when I told him I was your sister and that you were coming to my wedding, he asked if we could meet in person. He said it was important." "You met with him?" Emma asked, alarmed and confused. Why would Michael track down her sister? What could he possibly have to say that required such effort? "I did," Maya replied. "We met for coffee yesterday afternoon, and Emma, you need to know what he told me. You need to understand what's really happening here." Maya leaned forward, her expression intense. "He said he's been looking for you for 2 days, not because of any housing program or charity initiative, but because he's fallen in love with you." The words hit Emma like a physical blow, stealing the breath from her lungs. "That's impossible," she whispered. We knew each other for just a few hours on an airplane. People don't fall in love that quickly. That's exactly what I told him, Maya replied, a small smile playing at her lips. But then he spent 20 minutes telling me about every detail of your conversation on that flight. About how Lily fell asleep in his arms and how peaceful she looked. About your courage and strength working multiple jobs while raising a baby alone. About how you made him remember why he started his charitable work in the first place, to honor his mother and help women like her, like you. Maya pulled out her phone and showed Emma a photo. He wasn't talking like a CEO discussing a program participant. He was talking like a man who had found something precious and lost it through miscommunication. Emma, I've never seen someone so desperate to make things right. Emma stared at the photo Maya had taken during their meeting. Michael sat in a coffee shop looking tired and worried, nothing like the confident CEO she'd walked away from at the airport. He looked vulnerable, human, real. But the housing program, Emma protested weakly. The timing was too convenient. He was traveling specifically to oversee those programs. He explained that too, Maya said. Yes, he was traveling to Chicago for business meetings about the foundation's programs. And yes, he does sometimes fly economy to stay connected with the people his organization serves, to remind himself of the real human impact of their work. But helping you wasn't some calculated recruitment strategy. He said he watched you struggling for over an hour before he finally got the courage to offer help, worried you'd think he was being inappropriate or intrusive. Emma felt tears streaming down her face again, but these were different tears, tears of confused hope rather than anger and hurt. He gave me this to show you, Maya continued, opening a news article on her phone from 3 years earlier. The headline read, Thornton CEO establishes single mother housing initiative in memory of late mother. Below was a photo of Michael at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, standing next to a modest apartment building. But what caught Emma's attention was his expression, the same raw grief and determination she'd seen briefly at the airport. Read the quote, Maya instructed gently. Emma read aloud, her voice shaking. My mother, Maria Santos Thornton, raised me alone after my father abandoned us when I was 7. She worked 3 jobs to keep us housed and fed, often going hungry herself so I could eat. This program exists because no child should wonder if they'll have a home tomorrow, and no mother should have to choose between feeding her child and paying rent. Every family we help honors her memory and the sacrifice she made for me. Santos was his mother's maiden name, Maya explained. She was an immigrant single mother from Mexico who cleaned offices at night and worked in a factory during the day. Michael grew up in poverty, Emma. He understands your world because he lived it. He's not some wealthy person playing at charity. He built his fortune specifically to help others escape the circumstances that nearly destroyed his family. Emma sank onto the bed, overwhelmed by this new information. Everything she thought she knew about Michael was shifting, revealing layers she hadn't seen before. There's more, Maya said gently. He's here in Denver. He's been staying at the hotel where my reception is tomorrow night, not because he's trying to intrude or stalk you, but because he's hoping you'll give him a chance to explain everything properly, to make things right between you. He's at your wedding venue? Emma asked, alarmed. I invited him, Maya admitted. After hearing his story, after seeing how desperate he was to find you and explain, Emma, I thought maybe this was fate. Maybe you two were supposed to meet on that airplane, and maybe I was supposed to help fix what got broken between you. Emma looked down at Lily, who was watching her with bright, curious eyes. Her daughter deserved a father figure who would love and protect her. And Emma deserved someone who saw her as more than just a struggling single mother, someone who valued her strength and courage rather than pitying her circumstances. What if I'm not brave enough? Emma whispered, voicing her deepest fear. What if I open myself up to him and he disappoints me like everyone else has? What if I let myself believe in this and it falls apart? I don't think I could survive that kind of heartbreak again. Then you'll spend the rest of your life wondering, what if, Maya replied, reaching for Emma's hand. And Emma, you're the bravest person I know. You've survived everything life has thrown at you, abandonment, poverty, single parenthood, judgment from people like me who should have supported you. You've raised a beautiful daughter while working yourself to exhaustion. If you can do all that, you can certainly take a chance on love. The sisters sat together in that shabby motel room, holding hands like they used to as children, the 3 year silence finally broken. Outside, Denver traffic hummed and car horns honked, but inside, something had shifted between them, old wounds beginning to heal, old connections being restored. "I'm sorry for what I said 3 years ago," Maya whispered. "I was hurting and jealous, and I took it out on you when you needed support most. You're an amazing mother, and Lily is lucky to have you." "I'm sorry I didn't reach out after our fight," Emma replied. "I was too proud, too hurt. I should have tried to fix things between us instead of letting years pass." They embraced, carefully so as not to disturb Lily, and Emma felt a weight she'd been carrying for years finally lifting. Whatever happened with Michael, at least she had her sister back. The next evening, Emma stood outside the elegant hotel ballroom where Maya's reception was in full swing. She had borrowed a dress from her sister, a beautiful emerald green gown that made her feel like someone who belonged in such a fancy place. The fabric was soft and expensive, fitting perfectly after Maya's seamstress had made quick alterations. Lily was upstairs with a professional babysitter Maya had insisted on hiring, sleeping peacefully for once in a comfortable room with proper climate control. Through the glass doors, Emma could see the celebration inside. Maya looked radiant in her wedding dress, dancing with her new husband Michael, a different Michael, she reminded herself, while guests mingled around elegant tables decorated with white roses and gold accents. The room sparkled with candlelight and happiness, everything perfect and beautiful. And there, at a table near the back, sat Michael Thornton in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, watching the door as if he had been waiting for her all evening. He looked tired but hopeful, his gray eyes scanning every person who entered. Their eyes met through the glass, and Emma saw something in his expression that took her breath away. It wasn't pity or charity or even simple attraction. It was love, real, honest, overwhelming love that made her feel seen and valued for exactly who she was, not despite her circumstances but including them, encompassing all of her. Michael rose from his chair and walked toward the door with deliberate steps, never breaking eye contact. When he reached her, he stopped just close enough that she could see the hope and fear warring in his gray eyes. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," he said softly, his voice carrying so much emotion that Emma felt her own eyes filling with tears. "I was afraid too," Emma admitted, her hand unconsciously reaching up to touch the simple necklace Maya had lent her. "But someone recently told me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're terrified." "I should have been honest with you from the beginning," Michael said, the words tumbling out as if he'd been rehearsing them for days. "Not just about who I am professionally, but about how I felt from the moment I first saw you struggling with Lily. The moment she fell asleep in my arms and you trusted me enough to rest your head on my shoulder, I knew my life had changed forever. I knew I had met someone extraordinary." "Michael," Emma began, but he held up a gentle hand. "Please, let me finish. I need you to understand something." He took a deep breath. "I don't want to help you because you're a charity case or a perfect success story for my foundation's annual report. I want to build a life with you because you're the strongest, most genuine person I've ever met. I want to be Lily's father, not because she needs one, but because I already love her as if she were my own daughter. And I want to wake up every morning knowing that I get to spend another day with the woman who reminded me what really matters in life. Not wealth or success or professional accomplishments, but human connection, compassion, and love." Emma felt tears streaming down her cheeks, but for the first time in months, maybe years, they were tears of joy instead of despair or frustration. "I love you too," she whispered, the admission feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I think I started falling for you the moment you took Lily in your arms and made her feel safe, made both of us feel safe for the first time in so long. But I was so scared of being hurt again, of being disappointed again, that I almost threw it all away. I almost let my fear destroy something beautiful before it even had a chance to begin." Michael stepped closer, gently cupping her face in his hands with infinite tenderness. "You never have to be scared of that with me. I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you and Lily are the most important things in my world. Not as a charity project or a professional obligation, but as my family. The family I've been searching for without even realizing it." As he leaned down to kiss her, Emma realized that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness: a crying baby, a stranger's helping hand, and the courage to trust again despite past hurts. Those small moments of compassion had led her to something she had never dared to dream of, a love that would change not just her circumstances, but her entire world. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and smiling, Michael said, "So, would you like to dance?" "I believe this is where our real story begins, not the story of a CEO and a struggling single mother, but the story of two people who found each other against all odds and chose love despite their fears." Rachel took his hand, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would certainly be challenges, they would face them together. Not as benefactor and recipient, not as wealthy CEO and charity case, but as equal partners who had found in each other the missing pieces of their hearts. As they walked into the ballroom together, Maya caught Emma's eye from across the room and smiled with genuine happiness. The sister who had once criticized her choices was now beaming with approval, having played a crucial role in bringing Emma and Michael back together. The band was playing a slow, romantic melody as Michael led Emma onto the dance floor. Other guests noticed them and whispered, recognizing the famous CEO, but Emma no longer cared about their stares or speculation. In Michael's arms, swaying to the music, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete safety and acceptance. "What happens now?" Emma asked softly, still hardly daring to believe this was real. "We live in different cities. I have a job in San Diego, not a great job, but it's mine. I can't just abandon everything." "Then we figure it out together," Michael replied, his gray eyes serious and committed. "Maybe I open a Thornton Foundation office in San Diego. Maybe we find you a better job that doesn't require you to work yourself to exhaustion. Maybe I commute for a while until we decide where we want to build our life together. The details don't matter as much as the commitment, and Emma, I'm committed to making this work, whatever it takes." "I don't want to be someone you have to fix or save," Emma said, voicing a fear that still lingered despite everything. "I don't want to be your project." "You're not a project," Michael said firmly, pulling her closer. "You're the woman I love. Yes, I want to help make your life easier, the same way you'll help make my life better just by being in it. That's what partners do. They support each other, lift each other up, share burdens and joys. It's not about one person saving another. It's about two people choosing to face life together because they're stronger together than apart." The music swelled around them, and Emma allowed herself to fully relax into Michael's embrace. Around them, other couples danced: Maya and her new husband, older couples who'd been together for decades, young lovers just starting their journeys. Each couple had their own story, their own struggles and triumphs. "What about Lily?" Emma asked. "Being a stepfather to a 6-month-old is a huge responsibility. You'd be taking on sleepless nights, dirty diapers, teething, toddler tantrums, all the unglamorous parts of parenthood." Michael smiled, his entire face lighting up with genuine joy. "I can't wait. Emma, when I held Lily on that airplane and she fell asleep in my arms, trusting me completely, that was one of the most profound moments of my life. I felt like I had been given a glimpse of what truly matters. I want all of it: the sleepless nights, the first words, the first steps, teaching her to ride a bike, scaring away bullies, walking her down the aisle someday. I want to be her father in every way that matters." Emma felt her last defenses crumbling. This man, this incredible, compassionate, genuine man, was offering her everything she'd ever wanted but had been too afraid to hope for. "I'm going to mess this up sometimes," Emma warned, needing him to understand reality. "I'm going to be insecure and defensive. I'm going to worry that you'll leave like Tyler did. I'm going to have moments where I push you away because that's what I've learned to do to protect myself. And I'm going to be too controlling sometimes," Michael countered with a small smile. "I'm going to try to fix everything when you just need me to listen. I'm going to get too involved in my work and forget to come home on time. I'm going to make mistakes because I've never done this before either, never been in love like this, never been a father, never tried to build a real partnership with someone. So we'll be imperfect together," Emma said, finding comfort in that honesty. "Perfectly imperfect," Michael agreed. Making mistakes and learning from them, growing together, building something real instead of something perfect and fake. The song ended, but they continued swaying together, neither wanting to break the connection. Around them, the reception continued, guests laughing, champagne flowing, joy filling every corner of the elegant ballroom. But Emma and Michael existed in their own world, focused only on each other and the future they were beginning to build. "When can I see Lily?" Michael asked, his expression eager. "I've missed her." "Is that strange to say?" "I only spent a few hours with her, but I've thought about her constantly, wondering if she's sleeping better, if she's happy, if she knows somehow that I'm thinking about her." Emma's heart melted completely at his words. "She's sleeping upstairs right now. We could go check on her if you want. The babysitter is wonderful, but I'd like to see her too." Hand in hand, they slipped out of the ballroom and took the elevator to the suite where Lily was sleeping. The babysitter, a kind older woman named Margaret, smiled when she saw them. "She's been an angel," Margaret reported. "Drank her bottle, played for a bit, and went right to sleep. Not a single fuss." Emma paid Margaret for the evening, and then she and Michael were alone with Lily. The baby slept peacefully in a portable crib, her tiny chest rising and falling with each breath, completely at peace. Michael approached the crib with reverent care, gazing down at Lily with an expression of pure love. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "Perfect." "She has her moments," Emma said with a soft laugh. "You saw her at her worst on that airplane." "Even then, she was perfect," Michael insisted. "Babies cry, it's how they communicate." She wasn't being difficult or manipulative. She was just a tiny human expressing her needs in the only way she knew how. He reached down gently to adjust Lily's blanket, tucking it more securely around her. The gesture was so tender, so natural, that Emma felt tears welling up again. "You're going to be an amazing father," she said softly. "I'm going to try my best," Michael replied, looking up at her with those gray eyes that had first captured her attention on the airplane. "For both of you. You've given me a gift I never expected, a ready-made family, a purpose beyond just making money and running a foundation. You've given me love." Emma moved to stand beside him, and together they looked down at Lily. In that quiet moment, with the baby sleeping peacefully between them, Emma could envision their future, a real home with stability and love, birthday parties and family dinners, graduations and holidays, all the ordinary moments that would add up to an extraordinary life. "I'm still scared," Emma admitted quietly. "Terrified, actually. This feels too good to be true, and I keep waiting for something to go wrong." "Me too," Michael said, surprising her with his honesty. "I'm terrified of messing this up, of letting you down, of not being the father Lily needs or the partner you deserve. But Emma, I think being scared means we understand how precious this is. We're not taking it for granted." He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "I know we're moving fast. I know there's so much we still need to learn about each other. But I also know that what I feel for you is real. So here's what I propose: we take this one day at a time. No pressure, no rushing into things we're not ready for. We get to know each other properly, favorite movies, pet peeves, morning routines, all the mundane details that actually matter. We let Lily get comfortable with me at her own pace. We build a foundation, not with money or programs, but with trust and communication and genuine partnership." "That sounds perfect," Emma said, squeezing his hands. "Slow and steady, building something real." "But Emma," Michael added, his expression serious, "I also want you to know that while we're taking things slow emotionally, I'm absolutely committed to making sure you and Lily have what you need practically. Not as charity, but as basic human decency. Tomorrow, I'm going to have my assistant find you a better place to stay than that motel, just for the remainder of your trip. And when you get back to San Diego, I want to help you find a safer apartment, something with working heat and no rats in the walls. You can pay me back if it makes you feel better, or you can accept it as a gift. But I can't sleep knowing you're struggling when I have the resources to help." Emma's first instinct was to refuse, to insist she could handle everything herself. But she was tired, so tired, of struggling alone, of choosing between necessities, of constantly worrying about Lily's safety and future. Maybe accepting help wasn't weakness. Maybe it was wisdom. Okay, she said simply. But I want to contribute what I can. I'm not looking for a free ride, just a hand up. That's all I'm offering, Michael assured her. A partnership where we both contribute what we're able to. You bring your strength, your resilience, your love for Lily. I bring my resources and connections. Together, we create something better than either of us could alone. They sealed the agreement with a kiss, gentle and full of promise. When they finally left Lily sleeping peacefully and returned to the reception, Emma felt lighter than she had in years. The crushing weight of constant worry had eased, replaced by hope, genuine, realistic hope for a better future. Maya caught her as they returned to the ballroom. You look happy, her sister observed with a knowing smile. I am, Emma replied, meaning it completely. Thank you for tracking him down, for bringing us back together. You might have just changed my entire life. That's what sisters do, Maya said, pulling Emma into a hug. We support each other, even when we've been apart. I love you, Emma. And I can't wait to be Aunt Maya to Lily and to watch you build this beautiful life with Michael. As the evening continued, Emma danced and laughed and celebrated, not just Maya's marriage, but her own new beginning. She introduced Michael to various family members and old friends, watching with amusement as people's eyes widened when they realized who he was. But Michael never acted superior or distant. He was warm and genuine with everyone, asking about their lives and listening with real interest to their answers. When midnight approached and the reception began winding down, Michael walked Emma back to her new hotel room, a beautiful suite he'd arranged, nothing like the dingy motel. Lily was already there with the babysitter, who had moved all their belongings during the evening. This is too much, Emma protested when she saw the luxurious accommodations. It's one weekend, Michael replied. Let yourself enjoy comfort for a change. You've earned it. At the door, he kissed her goodnight, a long, sweet kiss that promised everything and demanded nothing. I'll see you tomorrow for breakfast, he asked. Just the three of us. I want to spend time with you and Lily without a crowd around. I'd like that, Emma said, already looking forward to it. As she watched him walk away down the elegant hotel corridor, Emma realized that her life had transformed in ways she never could have predicted. A crying baby on an airplane had led to this, to love, to family, to hope for a future she'd stopped daring to dream about. She checked on Lily one more time before changing into the comfortable pajamas Maya had included with the dress. Her daughter slept peacefully, completely unaware that her mother had just found them a path to a better life. But as Emma climbed into the impossibly comfortable bed, she made herself a promise. She would never forget where she came from, would never forget the struggle and desperation of those darkest days. When things got better, she would use her experience to help other women in similar situations. She would volunteer at shelters, mentor struggling mothers, be the support she wished she'd had. That was the gift Michael had given her. Beyond the material help, he'd shown her that surviving hardship could become purpose, that pain could transform into compassion for others. As sleep finally claimed her, Emma smiled, knowing that somewhere in this same hotel, Michael was likely lying awake too, thinking about their future and the miracle of finding love in the most unexpected place. And upstairs, Lily dreamed peacefully, safe and loved, completely unaware that she'd been the catalyst for her mother's transformation, that her cries on an airplane had ultimately led them both to the family they deserved. The next morning would bring new beginnings, difficult conversations about logistics and expectations, and the slow, careful process of building trust. But tonight, all three of them, Emma, Michael, and Lily, slept peacefully, dreaming of the beautiful future they would create together, one day at a time. The end.